we're discussing the government coming under fire amidst the announcement of new plans to start housing migrants in rudimentary accommodation. Could the days of indefinite 4- and 5-star hotel stays be over? Well, we've now been told that former military bases will be used instead. But perhaps one of my next guests has an even greater idea when a few weeks ago he suggested we send the SAS to Calais. Bear in mind, Calais used to be British, and Mary, Queen Mary, sister of Elizabeth I, daughter of Henry VIII, said that Calais was engraved on her heart when she died, or as she was dying, because it had been English and she lost it, and that the SAS should go to Calais to go after the migrant smugglers. He also pointed out that it had the added benefit of annoying the French, which, of course, I wouldn't be particularly keen on doing, and certainly not in favour of violence, although teasing the French is definitely a Brexit benefit. Kelvin, send in the SAS, get back Calais, final act of the 100 Years' War.
Yes, well, there is that. Look, my solution, or my suggestion, is not, I don't know whether anybody is going to take this up, is that it is not going to be solved in a conventional manner. We have tremendous brains, and I'm sure even the Labour and the Lib Dems have some ideas. The Tories have had plenty of ideas over the last, 7 years or so. None of them have worked, right? In fact, what's happened is we've got more than ever, and I imagine this summer will be even more because the smugglers actually say, look what they're doing, you better get over there quickly. So what are we going to do? The only way to do it is to cut the head off the snake, which is actually to capture. I have suggested another thing, but everyone goes mad immediately, I say, is capture the smugglers themselves. The French seem incapable of doing it. The Belgian police seem incapable of doing it, and yet everybody knows who they are, because I heard one guy saying that apparently they all drive around in rather big cars.
We should have got you supporting the Labour amendment on the immigration bill, which says that the National Crime Agency should set up a special unit that goes cross-border to target the smugglers and uses extraterritorial powers to capture them.
But you'd
so
like
that was our amendment we put down, and we tried to vote for it.
Right,
the government
vote Labour.
But you'd have liked the support of the French to do this. You weren't just going to go to Calais and do it willy-nilly, were you?
Well, we would have negotiated, but we would have set up the unit, and we would have resourced the unit, and we would
why is it? We've got two politicians here, very clever people. Why is it that we seem incapable of capturing these people? And why is it that any time anybody suggests anything like me sending the SAS in, and right, even your idea, which is probably better than nothing, or Labour's idea is better than nothing, better than, I suspect, the Conservative offering, why is it that nothing ever gets done? And all we get talking about now is you're out of a 5-star hotel, correct, but you're going to go over there aggravating, a local community that doesn't want all these people wandering around doing nothing.
Let's be clear, they weren't 5-star hotels. I mean, where migrants were put in my constituency were some of the worst hotels in Brighton.
But previously, people stayed in them for their holidays, so it can't be that
a lot of them were shut or boarded up and owned by Adolf van Hoogstraten. But this is kind of by the by. What is important to note, first of all, is that asylum applications have reduced over the last 15 years in this country, and we are lower than they were in 2008. And what has
That's
happened,
the applications. That is not the number that have arrived.
And the people coming over. And the number of people coming over.
True.
But what has happened is that we have clamped down on people coming on trucks. You remember they were hiding in trucks for a long time. We've clamped down on them there, and a proportion of them have moved into boats. And what we will do is we will clamp down on boats, and a proportion will just move into another form of coming over. And what we need to do is have legal processes where people can apply in Calais, and then we can send them back if their application is rejected.
But everybody wants to come. I mean,
not everyone does want to come.
Even the UN said 100 million people want to come.
No, not to the UK. No, that's not true.
That's what the UN said.
That's what they said.
That's what the UN said. 100 million people would like, and it shouldn't surprise us because this is a great country to come to. But isn't the problem with the French?
People would like to claim asylum.
Well, that's
not in the UK.
To the UK, yeah. But isn't the problem with the French not policing their own territory, that they
Well, the
have
French have asked for
illegal
a processing
migrants
site
there.
in France.
They have illegal migrants there who they do nothing to stop coming over to the UK. And they have that within their power because France is a safe country.
But they take the vast majority of those who arrive in France, apply for asylum in France, and are granted it or are denied it
But most of them shouldn't even have got to France because they have come through safe countries to get there. So you have to
But they will all have some sort of links to France, to Britain. But what we need, and I agree with you, we need to stop people coming even into France. And how you do that is you set up, and this is actually partly the Australian model, not a weak touch model, where Australia said there are processing centres, UN accredited processing centres where you can apply, and if you try and come to Australia, we will remove you from Australia and send you back to one of the processing centres, one of the most miserable processing centres they would send people to. But they recognise other processing centres in other countries, Thailand, etc. And what we have not done is recognised any processing centre anywhere else in the world, and that's why we're unable to stop it. But the Australians were able to stop it.
I think one of our problems that we face is that people from lots of different places in the world, which are really desperately poor people, want to come to a Western country because their own circumstances are shocking and are prepared to do anything to achieve that. My question is are Labour and also the Tories, are they in favour of those people coming to our country?
Well, we're going to have to leave that as a rhetorical question because we've got the link working, so we can be joined by the very distinguished human rights lawyer, Geoffrey Robinson. Geoffrey Robinson, thank you for joining us. You're concerned about the human rights of asylum seekers and feel that we shouldn't be taking this approach of housing them in barracks and so on.
Well, housing them in barges takes us back 200 years to where we put undesirables in hulks on the Thames and deported them to Botany Bay. And I think that Dickensian and cruel transportation has ended. We now want to transport them to Rwanda. But the problem with the government's bill from international law perspective is that it plans to abolish the right, and it's a very important right, of asylum seekers to apply in any country where they end up for asylum because they have a well-founded fear of persecution.
But they don't have a right, though, do they? They don't have a right to apply once they've been in a safe country. So their right is in France or a country before that, not here.
Well, they do, according to the UNHCR, which is in charge of refugees, and there are 27 million in the world today. And certainly...
But that's not what we signed up to. We signed up to people claiming asylum in the first safe country.
No, they have a right at any point to claim asylum. And this is what the Australians, for all the criticism of that policy, did actually do. They processed those people, and those who were found to be genuine refugees and not economic migrants. Many of them were taken by New Zealand, where they've done very well, others by America. So even the Australians processed. We are going to abolish processing. We're going to abolish the right to claim asylum, which is a precious right.
Well, they'll be able to claim asylum in Rwanda. So they will be able to claim asylum, just not in the UK. That seems perfectly reasonable protection of our borders.
And that's a breach of our duty under international law, according to the United Nations, and my view of it as well, that they do have a right to claim asylum, which we should not abolish. But we're going to put them in
But it's not the view. It's not the view of the Attorney General, who has signed off the bill as being in accordance with our legal obligations, because every bill has to be signed off by the Attorney General before it can be introduced.
International lawyer, and she's wrong, as she partly admitted. She's clearly wrong, and so we face the situation. And
but this is a key. This is a key issue. There, lawyers disagree. Lawyers disagree, and there isn't a court that has established this. So a very distinguished lawyer, the Attorney General, takes one view, and you take another. To say the law says isn't really accurate, is it?
Distinguished, but that, of course, remains to be seen.
Well, you don't think she's distinguished because she doesn't agree with you.
She's only
I don't think Baroness Hale's very distinguished because she didn't agree with me on prorogation.
Of course, it will be decided by the courts. The policy will be under fire in the courts, and we will find out. But already, Mr. Putin is calling us hypocrite for running international law against him. Our soft power depends on the fact that we are a country that abides by international law. So that's a real question mark, I think, for Parliament. As for the problem of housing, we have a duty to not to put these poor people in 4- or 5-star hotels, but to accommodate them with humanity. And that doesn't...
Well, on that point, I absolutely agree with you. I always think people should be housed with humanity. So we can finish on a point of agreement. But thank you so much for joining me in battling through the technological problems. I'm very grateful to my brilliant panel, who I hope will come again next week.